Hi and welcome back to Bike Speed. So this week we're going to sort this Trek Marlin. We're going to service this bike, we're going to clean it up, we're going to do a few little odds and ends on it. We're going to replace the chain, the cassette, the rear tyre and tube, and this front derailleur was completely seized, so we're also going to free that up and make sure that that's operating as it should. So this is a typical bike that we get through the door every day, and once in a while we think it's good just to bring it to the channel just to show you the kind of work we do on a routine daily basis. So as you can see here, the tyre is completely flat. We've got a new tyre to go on here and a new inner tube, and as you can see there, the chain is fully stretched out to 1% over the 6 inches there. So we're going to replace that chain. We had advised him to replace the cassette. I could see the most popular teeth that were used on that cassette were very worn, and I had said to him that he may need to replace the chain set on the front if the teeth on that wouldn't grip the chain once it had been replaced. But we test drove this bike after we'd finished the work, and actually the chain set was fine, so there was no need to replace that. So as you can see, the cassette there is worn, so we're going to replace that. But initially we're going to get everything off the bike. That's the derailleurs front and rear and a few of the other components, and you can see here how the debris is built up on that right hand jockey wheel there, very thick with debris. So we'll clean all those components up, re-lubricate them so that when everything goes back on the bike, it's as fresh and good as we can get it and well lubricated, so that as the bike moves forward it will operate and run as it should do. We're even taking off the chain set here to get that through the ultrasonic cleaner to really clean everything up. And then once this is off, we can feel the bottom bracket, check what those bearings feel like to us and just determine whether they're okay. And things like the brake pads, which we're removing now, can remove those, and then I can wash down the frame without impregnating those in any way. I'm going to get the components apart that we're going to put through the ultrasonic cleaner, in this instance the front and rear derailleurs, and we're going to just help this cleaning process by just cleaning off the debris off of the jockey wheels initially. And you can see there that clump of debris that's on the jockey wheels. You're dragging your chain through that with every pedal stroke, makes it a little bit harder to ride, a little bit less smooth, and also that can induce wear. So once that's all cleaned off and fresh, the component will feel and look like a new component and won't wear things out. So once everything's been through the ultrasonic cleaner, I then wash off that degreaser. We use a water soluble degreaser, so you don't mix it, it goes into the ultrasonic cleaner neat and then it's washed off afterwards. So as you can see, these components are already beginning to come up looking like new. It's just amazing what a difference the ultrasonic cleaner can make for really getting into parts of the components that you would never manage with a brush or a rag alone. It really works in, and it's just an amazing tool for cleaning components deep in. So even the jockey wheels here, we've put those through, washed everything down, and then we can now start the lubrication process. Initially I'm going to lubricate the jockey wheels. They've got a little pivot inside those, a little bushing. New, I don't think they're even lubricated, but I like to lubricate them just to make them feel and operate smoothly. A little bit of Loctite on the threads of the bolts that hold the derailleur together. That will stop that coming off loose when it's being ridden in any way. And as you can see, this component's already beginning to look nice. I do things that maybe manufacturers may not even do always, like a little bit of copper slip anti-seize on the threads of this thumb adjuster, a little bit of general purpose grease in the thumb adjuster itself, just to make sure that will operate and actuate smoothly throughout the life of the bike. The pivot points on the derailleur, and even the spring here, just to stop that getting corroded when it's on the bike being used day to day. Front derailleur, pivot points are being lubricated, and even things like the skewers. You'll notice we do this on our high-end bikes as well as these more entry-level bikes. Doesn't matter whether the bike's got Dura Ace or an entry-level group set like this, they're all treated the same. Parts are cleaned, lubricated, and put back together. And as I say, it doesn't matter whether it's an entry-level bike like this or a high-end bike. The servicing principle and process is very, very similar, regardless of where the bike stands within a range, and that's what we like to do with our services. So you can see there, the top set there is what we've already cleaned up, the bottom set is to be done, and it's just the subtle differences that will just make the bike ride and feel like new again. Once we've done all those components and they're all ready to go back on the bike, we can just give this bike a wash down. Again, this is a straightforward service, so this one's not being detailed, so you can see we haven't took everything off the frame. We're just going to wash it down, dry it off with a microfiber towel, bring it up nice as we can with that process without the polishing and the ceramic coating and that process on top. So this is just to make sure that the bike is nice and clean, ready to go together, to the rider this will feel like new. So we've got a new tyre here to go on. It's a directional tyre. We line up the logo with the valve, new inner tube, make sure that it's rotating in the correct direction for travel. And most tyres are directional, but it's often a step that's missed when we get bikes in. Often tyres are on the wrong way around, so we've done that as well. Once that part of the wheel is done, we can just turn our attention to the disc itself. We're going to just clean the surface of this. They score, so they act a little bit like a record player. That's what causes your squealing brakes often, is the disc itself. So we're just going to sand that down just to get that a little bit smoother than it was. A little bit of brake cleaner in the center as well, just to clean off the debris that's in the center of the wheel, and a little wipe down again with a microfiber towel to draw that off the bike before we wash down the wheel. So I like to wash down the rims. It's a nice way of just checking there's no damage to the rim and that no spokes are loose or that the wheel may need extra work. You can feel your way around the wheel to make sure that's okay. And then a little bit of general purpose grease where the cassette is going to go, just again to stop corrosion, stop it sticking to the hub itself. And then we torque that up and make sure that's all set correctly. And then also we just torque up the bolts on the disc rotor itself to make sure everything's right there. General purpose grease on the fitting of the chain set. A little bit of copper slip on the threads of the chain set bolts themselves. When I'm doing a rebuild, I like to torque up the chain set specifically because that can be 0.5 millimeter out and it will affect the adjustment of the front derailleur. So I do like to torque these up as I put them back on, just to make sure they're in their final position on a bike. The rest of the bike I tend to do pinch tight so as I can do adjustments and then torque it up at the end, but with the chain set that goes on first and is torqued up first. Tail on the front derailleur was a little bit long. That will tap on the pedal arm itself and cause a few problems. So that was too long from new, so we shortened that. Just put a new tail on there. And the derailleur hangers here, there was one of those bolts loose. Make sure things like that are tight before I put components back together. On goes that rear derailleur. Now I've put a little bit of copper slip on the back of these pads because they had a rust ring on all of them. That won't affect the braking surface of the pad because it's on the other side, and it will just stop that corrosion building up and causing any problems with actuation down the line. So we get that on there and get those back into the bike. Put the little split pin back in just to make sure that everything's okay there. Again, a little bit of grease on there will help the actuation, won't affect the pads in any way. And then on go the wheels, and we're really beginning to get there with this bike now. I have a new chain now. This is a much better quality chain than that was on the bike originally, so I know that chain is going to perform better than the original one. So now we just do our adjustments on the gearing just to make sure it's travelling, and this seized front derailleur is now operating perfectly as it should. Then I check the brakes through. We'll make sure that those discs are centered in the calipers and are operating correctly with no rub. Do those off camera as well, but they're all sorted out nice once they go out. And then we just run through the bike with a torque wrench and Allen keys and screwdrivers just to make sure that everything is spot on the bike before it leaves the shop, and that we're happy that nothing's going to come loose and cause a problem for the rider down the line. Now we're on to the pedals, so they're torqued up. We torqued the saddle up also, which lately seems to be loose in almost every video we do, but again it was loose here. Then finally we do the rear brake and the derailleur. The bike was almost torqued correctly, but it's still good to have had it checked. So as you can see, this bike is now really getting there. Everything on it is now perfect, and as you can see from these before and afters, a subtle difference but a huge difference. The bike will ride like new, plenty of life in it now, and everything's operating as it should. So this is the sort of video we do weekly here on the channel. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do subscribe, please do like, and drop us a comment below, and we'll see you again next week. So thanks again, and bye for now.